In this video, we'll break down the mechanics of the spiking jump. Suddenly, did you know that when jumping to spike, the right and left legs work completely differently? It's not just that the foot angles are different. They are completely different types of jumps. If that isn't understood, it's impossible to identify how to improve the jump or which training methods would be most effective. Wish to boost jump power? Unsure of footwork and arm swing? My feet hurt when I jump. So if you're one of those people, or a coach, I really want you to watch this video until the end. The science of spiking, jump edition. Completely different footwork, right versus left. Jump that uses muscle and tendon power. Why turn the left toe inward? How to boost jump power with arm swing. Is landing on the left foot wrong? Summary. Alright, let's get started. First, I'll explain the phenomenon called rising rotation, which is the reason why the feet land diagonally during the jump approach. First, I'll drop this stick from above with some force. It bounced back a little on impact. Now, I'll let it land diagonally from the side. What do you think? I threw this one at nearly the same speed, but compared to before, you can see it bounced much higher. Unlike bouncing a ball, it jumps higher with rotation, when landing diagonally while moving horizontally, rather than dropping straight from above. This is what's called the rising rotation. There are three main characteristics of the rising rotation. The faster it moves forward, the higher it bounces up. And rather than dropping it from above, landing while moving as parallel to the ground as possible creates greater upward energy. Also, if the angle of tilt is too upright or too steep, it won't bounce well. There's an optimal angle for the bounce to work effectively. To summarize simply, the faster you move, the more parallel you are to the ground. And the closer the angle is to 45 degrees, the greater the upward force you create. Physically speaking, the ideal is to land at a 45-degree angle, while moving parallel to the ground. But when a person jumps, factors like arm swing also matter, so an angle of about 50 to 60 degrees tends to feel more natural. When it comes to track and field events that use the rising rotation, the high jump is a good example. After the run-up, the foot plants diagonally and the body takes off into the air. The movement looks almost identical to the rising rotation stick I showed earlier. In pole vaulting, the bending pole also uses this same principle to flex and launch the athlete upward. In the high jump and pole vault, there's a timing difference in the takeoff because the pole bends in the vault. But both events convert the energy from the run-up into the energy for the jump. They're both using the rising rotation. Now that we understand the rising rotation, let's look at the actual movement. I'll use Sakota's form, known for powerful back attacks, as the example. In a back attack, the jump carries forward more than in a normal spike. The foot angles change slightly, but the basic movement is the same. I'll explain the difference between a normal spike and a back attack later, but for now, first, I want to walk you through the overall flow of the movement. So let's start from the approach. If you're right-handed, this left step before the jump is the key. As fast as possible, and as parallel to the ground as possible. Step in low and far forward to generate forward momentum. This movement is what allows me to use the rising rotation. And the right foot plants from the heel. You can see that the hip and knee bend deeply to about 90 to 100 degrees before takeoff. The way the right leg is used in the spike jump is similar to how a pole bends in the pole vault. Break the run up, bend the right knee and brace firmly against the ground to convert that force into jumping energy. Next, let's focus on the left foot. The landing angle is about 55 degrees, which is ideal for the rising rotation. The hip and knee are slightly bent, and the landing is on the forefoot. But at the moment of landing, the hip and knee joints hardly bend during takeoff. Unlike the right leg, which moves through a large range of motion, the left knee barely bends when it lands. It rebounds instantly, like a stiff pole. This is the spike of Nishida, who is left-handed. And this one is Ishikawa. If you look at the ground contact time, Every right-handed player spends about 0.35 seconds on the right foot. And about 0.15 seconds on the left foot. The right foot produces a slower, longer jump, while the left foot creates an instant, quick jump. Because of this difference, I teach the right foot as the slow jump, and the left foot as the fast jump. For convenience, I'll use those same terms throughout this video as well. The right foot plants from the heel and the knee bends deeply for a slow jump with a long ground contact time. It can be pictured like a pole in the pole vault. And with my left foot, I land on the forefoot with minimal knee bend for a fast jump with a short ground contact time. It can be pictured like the high jump. Because the right and left legs work differently, the movement requires not only strength but also skill, making it a very deep technique. Let's explore this footwork from a muscle and tendon perspective. Let's look at the muscle actions that play a major role in jumping. The gluteus maximus connects from the pelvis to the femur. And as the hip bends, the muscle is stretched. And when the gluteus maximus contracts, the hip extends like this. The hamstrings, located in the back of the thigh, connect from the pelvis to below the knee. And these muscles are also stretched as the hip bends. And when the hamstrings contract, the hip extends. The quadriceps, located on the front of the thigh, connect through the kneecap to the shin bone like this. When the knee bends, the muscle is stretched, and when the quadriceps contract, the knee extends. The calf muscles, the triceps sori, become the Achilles tendon near the bottom and connect to the heel. When the ankle bends like this, they are stretched. And when the triceps sori contract, the ankle extends as well. Compared to muscle tissue, the Achilles tendon is much stiffer, almost like an extremely hard rubber band. It's so stiff that it barely stretches unless a very strong force pulls on it, but if it's stretched with enough force, it snaps back with a powerful rebound. It's just like a stiff rubber band snapping back as it tries to shorten. Strictly speaking, many more muscles and tendons are involved. But these are the main ones. And muscles and tendons have a very interesting characteristic called the stretch-shortening cycle. This means that when a muscle or tendon is stretched while producing force, it can generate about 1.2 to 1.3 times its usual power. This power boost comes from two different mechanisms, one driven mainly by the muscles, and the other driven mainly by the tendons. The stretch-shortening cycle driven mainly by the muscles can be felt clearly in a vertical jump. If you jump from a position where your knees are already bent, you won't jump as high without quick joint action. By using the stretch-shortening cycle and jumping at the moment when the muscles are temporarily stronger, we can jump higher. Another point is that it takes about 0.35 seconds after the muscle starts producing force to reach its maximum strength. And the stretch-shortening cycle driven mainly by the tendons works in movements like a jump rope bounce. At the moment of landing, the triceps sori produce force while the ankle bends from the impact. So the triceps sori contract and pull the Achilles tendon this way, while the landing impact bends the ankle in the opposite direction and pulls the tendon that way as well. As a result, the Achilles tendon is stretched and tries to recoil like a rubber band. That recoil energy from the tendon is what drives the jump. And when the tendon is stretched even more, the stretch reflex is triggered. Have you seen this test before? It's the test where you tap the patellar tendon and the knee kicks out reflexively. Seen from the side, the patellar tendon looks like this, connecting the quadriceps, through the kneecap, to the lower leg bone. By the way, the Achilles tendon connects to the triceps sori, while the patellar tendon connects to the quadriceps. When you relax your leg like this and tap the patellar tendon, it gets stretched like this. By tapping it, you create the same effect as suddenly pulling the tendon. Then, as a protective response, the quadriceps contract automatically. This reflex is extremely fast. Right after the tap, the quadriceps contract and the knee extends. This reaction, where a stretched tendon causes the connected muscle to contract instantly, is the stretch reflex. So when a tendon is stretched, it recoils like a rubber band, due to its own elasticity. And the stretch reflex makes the connected muscle contract instantly as well. This tendon-driven stretch shortening cycle is faster than the muscle-driven one. And it can produce explosive force in about 0.15 seconds. Now that we understand the characteristics of muscles and tendons, let's revisit how the right and left legs are used differently. In the right foot slow jump, the gluteus maximus, hamstrings, quadriceps, and triceps sori are stretched while producing force from the very moment of landing. Then, through the stretch shortening cycle, driven mainly by the muscles, those muscles produce about 1.2 to 1.3 times their usual force and generate the jump. In the left foot's fast jump, the hip and knee are slightly bent, and with the joints firmly fixed, the landing is on the toes. At that moment, the triceps sori pull the Achilles tendon in this direction. And as the landing impact bends the ankle, the tendon is pulled in the opposite direction as well. It's a subtle movement, but you can see that the landing is with the heel slightly lifted, and the impact causes it to sink down. This moment is when the Achilles tendon is being stretched. Then, in the rebound, the stretch reflex makes the triceps sori contract, pulling the Achilles tendon this way, and as the tendon itself recoils, the ankle extends rapidly. This is what allows it to produce explosive power in an instant. So in the slow jump of the right foot, the body braces firmly to use the muscles fully, while in the fast jump of the left foot, the landing is on the forefoot with the knee and ankle fixed. Now let's also look at the direction of the toes during the plant step. Starting with the final left step, the toes and knee turn inward, the heel lifts, and the landing is on the forefoot. There are three main reasons why this landing method is effective: to use the rising rotation, to use the Achilles tendon, and to prevent injuries. First, I explained that the left foot's fast jump works like a stiff pull creating rising rotation. And to achieve that, the foot needs to land diagonally. If the knee points in the direction of the run-up, it moves forward like this, and the energy escapes in that direction. But when the landing is done, with the toes turned inward like this, the leg stays almost in a straight line, making it harder for the energy to escape. This allows a strong braking action and creates the upward rotation. I'd like you to actually try this. You'll notice that it's harder to brace strongly, with the toes pointing forward, and much easier to brace when the foot is turned sideways and you push through the big toe side. Being able to brace without losing force is a key point for creating rising rotation with the left foot. By the way, if the foot slides inside the shoe, you can't push off strongly. For strong braking and power, use shoes that prevent slipping. Next, regarding the Achilles tendon, if you land with the toes pointing straight, your foot lands like this, leaving no space for the heel to drop. So the tendon can't be stretched effectively. But if the landing is sideways, the heel can stay lifted. The impact bends the ankle and stretches the Achilles tendon. And by using the tendon's elasticity and the stretch reflex, the body can explode upward. And the third point, I think opinions may differ on this one. Some coaches believe that turning the left foot inward might increase the risk of injury and recommend not turning it in too much. But my way of thinking is a little different. First, if you look at the shape of the knee bones, they look like this. This is the left leg viewed from the front. Seen from the side, it looks like this. If you look only at the bones, the femur is simply resting on the flat surface of the lower leg. Especially from the side, it looks very unstable, a round surface sitting on top of a flat one. So keeping that in mind, let's look at the planting phase from the approach. To use the rising rotation, the left foot lands at about 55 degrees on the forefoot. If I keep this foot position and turn the toes forward to land straight, the knee bends to about 130 degrees to create a strong force position. So the lower leg lands at an angle close to vertical. If you think only about the lower leg bone, breaking the run up with the foot creates a rotational force that makes the upper end tilt in this direction. Diagonal landings create rotation, but a more vertical shin produces even greater force. The foot applies the brake, but the torso and thigh continue trying to move in this direction. This creates a bending load on the knee, along with a shear force that tries to make it shift. This places a particularly large load on the quadriceps. And of course, the patellar ligament is also pulled strongly and becomes highly tense. A common knee injury among students is Osgood-Schlatter disease or jumper's knee. Osgood-Schlatter occurs when this area is pulled strongly and becomes inflamed. And jumper's knee is an injury in which the patellar ligament or the quadriceps attachment here is pulled and becomes inflamed. These are exactly the areas that take heavy stress when jumping with the toes pointed forward. On the other hand, when the landing is sideways like this, the lower leg lands at an angle, so the rotational force becomes smaller. Also, when the lower leg and thigh align in a straight line, the joint surfaces fit together like this. So compared to before, both the bending load and the shear force are likely reduced. So based on the bone structure, landing sideways provides more stability when bracing, compared to landing straight forward. However, when jumping with the toes turned inward, there is one important safety point you must always follow. That is to brace through the big toe side of the foot. If the toes turn inward and the weight falls onto the little toe side, it can lead to the worst outcome. The ankle can twist, and the knee can collapse sideways like this, greatly increasing the risk of injury. So if I compare the load on the leg and the risk of injury based on the direction of the toes, it likely looks like this. Bracing with the toes turned in and pushing through the big toe side puts less load on the leg than bracing with the toes straight. But if the toes turn in and the bracing shifts to the little toe side, the load becomes even greater. So it's understandable why some believe you shouldn't turn the toes inward too much, because there is indeed a potential risk. But I prefer to land with the foot slightly turned inward and on the big toe ball side of the arch. I think landing so the foot forms a straight line from the side helps increase jump height and prevent injury. But I have to say this again, I think pushing off on the outer edge of the foot like this is extremely dangerous. I believe it is important to practice pushing firmly on the big toe ball side of the arch. And about the right foot, it needs to be turned slightly outward, so the left foot can land angled inward. However, there are large individual differences, such as hip joint structure, so it is difficult to say exactly how far the right foot should be turned outward. Some athletes can use the left foot well even when it stays straight, while others, like me, find it harder to push off the left foot unless the right foot is turned outward. Here is footage of Yanagita, and his right foot can be seen turned quite far outward. This appears to be less about using the right foot itself and more about setting up a smoother connection into the left foot. In a spike jump, the final plant with the left foot plays the more important role. Find the right foot angle that allows the left foot's upward rotation and the Achilles tendon to work efficiently. Also, the toe angle and the width and positioning of the feet differ slightly between a normal spike and a back attack. In a normal spike, the momentum from the approach needs to be converted into upward force for the jump, so a solid braking action is required. In contrast, a back attack jump needs to carry momentum forward, so the right foot brake is reduced, the stance becomes wider, and both toes face more forward. In other words, the foot placement is adjusted depending on whether the goal is a height-focused jump that uses strong braking and maximal upward rotation, or a forward-flowing jump that carries the momentum of the approach into the spike. Now, let's take a look at the arm swing. The arm swing adds a surprisingly strong lift. By the way, I am not a high-level athlete myself, but even arm swing and upper body motion can create this much height. This shows that a well-used arm swing can also contribute to jump power. Now, let's use a bat to explain the arm swing. Let's imagine this bat as the arm, and the part 1 I'm pinching here as the shoulder. How can the pendulum-like motion of this bat be converted into upward force? The answer is to move the point. I am pinching from down to up at the right timing. First, lower it together with the bat so the whole bat can swing widely, then pull it up forcefully from directly below. This movement fails if the timing is too early or too late. If you have something shaped like a stick at home, try this yourself. You will notice how this motion creates a surprisingly strong upward force. When this motion is done well, it produces a very powerful force, so be careful not to lose your grip and send it flying. At the start of a pendulum swing, a larger arc generates greater energy. Even with a pendulum of the same weight, a larger swing produces greater energy than a smaller one. When the bat is swung normally, the arc looks like this. But when the axis is lowered together with the bat, the arc becomes much larger, and the energy increases. And pulling it upward at the moment it passes directly below adds even more acceleration. This can be understood well by imagining the motion of a hammer throw. When the head is at the bottom, pulling the hammer in strongly accelerates the head, and allows it to travel tens of meters. To take advantage of this effect, the bat is pulled up forcefully, at the moment it passes directly below. In the first half, a large swing creates greater energy, and sharply pulling up from directly below causes the distal end to accelerate rapidly, producing far more upward force than simply swinging. At the moment the motion reverses from down to up, a weight far greater than the bat's actual mass can be felt. This board has cushioning, and when the arm is swung on it, you can see the board sink from around this point due to the centrifugal force. And from around this point, the motion shifts into upward producing energy. Now, with that in mind, let's look at the arm swing again together with the footwork. We will use Yanagita as the example. First, at the moment the right foot steps out toward the jump, the arms swing backward. At this moment, relaxing the arms causes them to lag behind and stay back. The arms are not pulled back by using force. Then, as the right foot lands and applies the brake, the arms naturally return forward. Shoulders and arms stay relaxed and swing in a big motion. It does not look tight or forced. Then, from around the point where the arms pass directly below, the torso begins to rise, and lifting the arms from the shoulders causes them to accelerate rapidly, creating strong centrifugal force in this phase. This corresponds to the part where the board sank earlier. This downward force allows the feet to push against the ground more powerfully, and strongly stretches the Achilles tendon. Then, at the moment when the arm swing shifts into upward producing force around this point, the jump is initiated. One thing to be careful about is that trying to swing forward quickly, with too much effort, causes the shoulders and elbows to tense and shrink, resulting in a swing that is slower despite the increased effort. A small pendulum cannot generate large energy, and forcing the movement does not create acceleration. Look at Yanagita's shoulders, they drop so much that the line becomes clearly sloped. Relax in the first phase, then drive the arms up as they pass below. This balance of relaxation and the timing of the upward lift is the key to the arm swing. Next, let's go over the landing phase of the jump. Landing is an important phase and crucial for injury prevention. In spike landings, you often hear advice such as, "It's not good to land on the left foot alone, so you should land on both feet." However, my view is a bit different. Landing on the left foot first is not a problem, as long as the impact can be absorbed properly. There are two reasons for this. The first reason is that aiming to hit at a higher contact point naturally leads to landing on the left foot first. The second reason is that even if the left foot touches down first, the impact can be absorbed in the same way as a 2-foot landing. For example, when trying to raise the right hand as high as possible from a standing position, you can reach higher by standing on the left foot alone than by standing on both feet. The pelvis and spine are connected in this way, so tilting the pelvis like this allows the hand to reach higher. I will explain this in more detail next time. But the most balanced swing posture is when the left foot and the right hand align in a straight line. In fact, in top-level players, the right hand and left foot are almost always aligned in a straight line during the spike. So when hitting from this posture, at the highest possible contact point, it is natural for the landing to begin on the left foot. However, even if the left foot touches down first, the best approach is to land on both feet and absorb the impact softly by using the ankles, knees, hips, and even the shoulders and arms. Some people may have trouble imagining how the shoulders and arms help soften the landing impact, so let's first look at the arms alone. On the cushioned board from earlier, let's lower the arm from above. At the moment the arm drops, the board lifts upward. This is also something I encourage you to try and feel for yourself. Raise the arms from the shoulders and drop them quickly all at once. You should feel a brief sensation as if the body lifts slightly. Right after that, the weight of the arms drops onto the legs with a heavy feel, but at the moment the arms fall, the body should feel lighter. Now let's compare a hard landing that does not absorb impact with a soft landing that does. I will drop onto the board from the same height. First is a hard landing that does not absorb the impact. The impact caused the board to bend deeply, and its underside even touched the floor. Next is a soft landing that absorbs the impact. What do you think? The amount of bend in the board is completely different. By using the joints softly like this, the peak load can be reduced. However, the total amount of load does not change, so this method places the weight over a longer period of time. You might think, if the total load is the same, then what's the point, but that is not the case. Because experiencing a large, instantaneous load increases the risk of injury. Even if the total load is the same, spreading it out over time reduces the stress on the body. By the way, when landing with the joints bending deeply like this, the sudden impact is reduced, but the thigh muscles will likely feel strained. However, this simply means that the load normally placed on the joints is being distributed to the muscles as well. A movement that feels easy is not necessarily a movement that is good for the body. As mentioned earlier, students often develop knee pain from repeated jumping, such as Osgood-Schlatter disease or jumper's knee. First, I recommend practicing an intentionally soft landing, even in an exaggerated way. As the right foot steps out from the approach into the jump, the arms swing backward, staying relaxed and naturally lagging behind. Then, like a pole vaulter's pole, the right foot should reach out quickly, as far as possible, and land almost parallel to the ground. The right foot turns slightly outward, landing on the heel first, and this becomes a slow, controlled jump with a firm push. Just before the left foot lands, the torso rises, the shoulders lift, and the arms are driven upward all at once. The left foot lands with the knee slightly bent, the ankle firmly stabilized, the toes turned inward, and the heel lifted, creating a diagonal contact that allows for an instant, high-speed takeoff. And in the landing, the shoulders and arms drop downward from the raised position. At the moment of contact, while the ankles, knees, and hips move softly to absorb the impact. This is what I consider the ideal jump. However, if the muscles in Achilles tendon are not yet developed, it becomes difficult to widen the final step or to perform the instantaneous, high-speed jump off the left foot. Detailed methods will be explained next time. For now, don't push too hard, increase your approach speed gradually and train safely. This video isn't the absolute answer, but I hope it gives you useful insight and helps you find points to improve. By repeating the drills with this awareness, and eventually being able to do them without thinking, your performance level will undoubtedly rise. Please try incorporating this into your training starting tomorrow. Next time, we will look at the science of spike swinging. In that video, I will explain in detail why this arm swing works, what the left arm does, and how the core should be used. I will also cover the specific methods for the approach, jump, and swing, as well as the training drills, so if you're interested, please subscribe and stay tuned. Your likes, comments, and super thanks really encourage me. This video became quite long, but thank you very much for watching until the end.
Howling at the moon. It's no use living if you're already dead. It's not worth saying if it's already said.